Good evening, everyone. We are at our start time, but we still have some folks waiting to get in, so we'll get started as soon as we clear that line. Thank you so much. Testing. He says yes. You said no. Is this?
Test, test, test.
Okay, thanks again for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's meeting. We do have a very full agenda, so we do want to, in respect of everyone's time, try to keep on schedule as close as possible. Just before we get into our agenda, a few housekeeping items. Anyone that needs the restrooms are back over here. Just as a reminder, exits here if we need to use them unexpectedly, and the meeting is being live streamed on Facebook and recorded this evening. So, after we go, this is just a brief overview of our agenda. We're going to get into the details as we move forward. One area that we won't have this evening is a treasurer's report because our treasurer fell ill this morning. So we have to postpone that for next month's meeting. Just other couple reminders about cell phones, and if you need to have a conversation, if you can take it outside, we would appreciate that. Okay, so our first item here is for members from our June meeting, because we did not have a meeting in July. These are the minutes that were posted online. And if anyone has any questions about the minutes, we would take those at this point. If not, we would be looking for a motion to approve. Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Noted that the minutes from the June 2025 meeting have been approved. Okay, so moving right along, we have some very special guests this evening. We have two of our Pine Island groups that do a lot of good, not only around disaster times, but throughout all the year, every year. And we are grateful for their attendance this evening to share some of their developments and their successes and what you can expect from them. And our first guest speaker will be Aaron and Aaron from the Greater Pine Island Alliance.
I want to start off by saying thank you to Greater Pine Island Civic Association for allowing us this opportunity. Thank you to the Baptist Church for the venue here, because everything we do as a whole of the community always comes out better. So it's great to have the teamwork and the team here. Going to keep this brief. If there's any organization or folks who would like more information, please feel free to reach out with us. We can come to your organization or your event and do a more thorough brief. But in the interest of time and the agenda that we have a truncated version, but to give you the information of what we do and who we are. So my name is Lieutenant Colonel retired Aaron Beretta. I served a little over 20 years in the armed forces. And then thank you. I retired here on Pine Island. I'm also past commander of the American Legion. I was the commander when we had Ian. So some of what I did on the island in terms of recovery and helping people started with that great Ian effort that we did down at the American Legion, and we're feeding 600 to 900 people per day. Before I keep going, though, let me introduce my executive director, Miss Erin Lawler Lambert here. Her background is in international business, both local business, and also her experience on Pine Island comes from raising a son on Pine Island and having a family here. So together we come from very different backgrounds, but that's what helps bring this organization together and our unique experiences. So for me, as the commander of the American Legion, obviously that great need, feeding a lot of people, giving a lot of resources, saw that there was a need to organize and to help the island. Part of this came from a lot of the partners that came out to the island to help us, and they explained to me that what we needed to do was to form what's called a long-term recovery group. I'll give you the definition in a minute, but the idea behind it is that we reduce the duplication of services and we try and streamline so that all the people who need help can get help. Because a lot of times we all have the greatest hearts, but if we're not talking and communicating and cooperating, we can go in different directions trying to do great things. So from that, quickly after that experience, it birthed into what is the Long-Term Recovery Group. And we were formally founded as a 501c3 that January, right after Ian. My background, though, did not start in emergency services there. I was an interagency fellow, and while I was in the military, I was lent out to the U.S. Marshal Service. And with the U.S. Marshal Service, I went through incident command systems and went up to 400 level, which is for complex response in complex environments like hurricanes. So emergency training and background in this, it was something I was able to employ, having been previously trained in response and emergency response. So from there, one of the things that was very apparent is that we just continued to need to work as a community. So as we founded this nonprofit, it is still funded today completely through grants and donations. So it is all grant and donation funded to help people recover. Some of the things that you might remember after Ian that we're involved in, I worked with the county, I worked with FDEM, debris, trash removal, opened up the warming shelter at the library. I met with the county, met with the state on maintaining those comfort stations we had. So this was in addition to the details of the muck and guts and just helping people with day-to-day activities. And that's where the long-term recovery group comes in, is working with everybody to help better our community in the event of a disaster. So here's our mission right here. And essentially, it's focused on providing that leadership and management, looking at the long-term recovery efforts. So the purpose of our organization is to reduce that duplication of efforts and collaborate with other organizations in disaster recovery. Since Ian, I've been volunteering. I've been volunteering for the last 3 years across the island. I tell people, what are you? I'm a professional volunteer now. And our goal is really just to return every survivor home. Obviously, we're making good headway after Ian, and then Helene and Milton came, and Aaron will talk more about Helene and Milton. But going back to what is that long-term recovery group? So the best practice definition is from our National Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. And it's a collaborative body that is non-faith-based, faith-based businesses, organizations, and people that want to assist their community recover from a disaster. So this is the best practice definition, and the model for that our federal emergency management and other people use is based on this national VOED definition. So as the LTRG, like I said, it's a recognized organization. So this particular model comes from our national VOED, Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, and follows the FEMA flow chart of response. Keywords up there: preparedness, response, and recovery. If I can look at the two orange on the bookends, before a disaster, that preparedness is on our local community and local organizations. And so that's us, and that's our community, the whole community approach. But it relies on volunteer organizations to be there immediately to respond after a storm. You know, whether it's the muck and gut, whether it's helping people get food, water, shelter. And then the middle, we all had experience with that. I'm still dealing with that middle part between insurance and FEMA and SBA and who knows what else, right? That's the middle. But once again, even in our government model, it ends back with that long-term recovery group. Because the long-term recovery group is there to take care of any unmet needs that were not resolved in that middle section. Also understanding that some of those people that come and help can't be there 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. Because oftentimes in disaster we face, it takes 4 and 5 years to actually recover from those disasters. My home, still repairing it. I'm sure a lot of you guys still are doing repairs on your homes. So from that, one of the other key takeaways is in long-term recovery, it's a unique focus on individuals and individual families. There is no set template, and that's one thing everybody's understood and sees, is that what we do in a long-term recovery group is we bring people in and we sit down and we talk with them about a recovery plan. And we take a look and we say, hey, what are your needs? Because for me, maybe I need a muck and gut. Maybe I just need some water. But somebody else may need help completely repairing their home. So it varies quite a bit on what people need. So that is one of our focuses as we look at preparedness, response, and recovery. So how do we accomplish this? It's through that community cooperation, collaboration, or communication and coordination with each other. And I use this model, I call it the hub and spoke. That represents just a couple groups that we work with. We'll show more later. But the unmet needs come both ways. So, you know, I've called the Beacon of Hope before and said, hey, I know some of your service can help somebody. They've called us before and said, hey, your services can better help somebody. You know, we have worked with United Methodist Disaster Relief. They called us just a couple weeks ago, hey, we have somebody, can you help them out? And so it's that collaborative effort where communication goes back both ways over all these organizations that can help each other.
And I think just a brief example of how that has worked post Ian and prior to Helene and Milton is we actually received a phone call from a different individual, not for their own personal needs, but they noticed another family in need on this community, in this island. Young children, minors, the family was displaced, living in unsanitary and unsafe conditions, and she was expecting. And so she was not able to work anymore. Her husband was working many, many jobs, trying to help as many as he could. We found this out from a different individual. So we partnered with, as you can see, private as well as public entities to try to get that woman home so that when this premature child arrived into this world, she was returning to a safe, sanitary, and secure environment. And that's really key. When I say safe, sanitary, and secure, that is our goal for everybody. Not necessarily meaning that you're going to have beautiful murals replaced and painted in your home, but it does mean you are going to be safe, secure, and sanitary. When we go to our next model, when Helene and Milton hit, going back to the preparedness, response, and recovery, we were still responding to and recovering from Ian. Everyone in this room knows that. We were not back yet. right? But the important thing was, would you agree that we still needed to be better prepared for anything that was going to come? Did we know it was going to come so quickly? No. But thankfully, we had been preparing as well as recovering so that we were able to rapidly respond. So when Helene Milton hit, GPI still had over 80 cases in our caseload of damaged homes, of individuals not living in safe, secure, and sanitary environments. But in the other phase of what we were doing was preparing for a future disaster. So we had already positioned Starlinks up and down the island so we would never again be cut off from one another for communication. We had pre-positioned water. We had pre-positioned other supplies. We had already agreed how we were going to bring in the muck and flood buckets. My team, I just want to acknowledge really fast, Janine and Teresa, if you could wave over there. A lot of you have worked with, I look around this room, and I'm not going to point anybody out, but a lot of you have actually worked with Janine and Teresa. Janine is my executive administrator. She handles all of the intakes, as well as most of the other things in my world. Teresa handles all of our disaster case navigation and management, which is so vitally crucial when we are partnering and we look at our different functions. When we have an incursion, it's so vital that we know and have the volunteers to come in, and we can determine instantly. We stood up the day after both Helene and Milton with our Starlink if needed, with our supplies and the volunteer coordination, so we knew which of the response areas needed water, needed Starlink, needed muck and guts, needed flood buckets, maybe just needed emotional, spiritual help. All of these different types of organizations we had pre-positioned, prepared with, due to our phone calls with ES15, which I know Aaron's going to speak to in a moment, and the different ways that we communicate prior to an incursion, as well as the intake post an incursion. So this is a sample of our current friends, partners, and donors of how we're able to make this possible to ensure that going forward we can always work better collaboratively to ensure that the right information is getting to the right people and that we're getting the resources to those really in need.
To this slide, I just want to point out a couple. So understand that the organization is not just about repairing homes, but it is about looking at the whole of recovery. Because quickly realized, even if you have a building, if it's empty, you know, you still got to put your head down somewhere, and that air mattress only works so long. So, you know, one of United Way, I know, helps multiple organizations on the island. They've got a great warehouse. They have supplied multiple things, furniture to help people to get back in their homes. Little known, smaller groups have also contributed. Somebody Cares. We've worked with them for appliance programs to get appliances back. You know, the local Moose Lodge, they house 2 of our 20-foot containers where we can have preparedness supplies and reconstruction supplies. Lee County, Teresa has worked with multiple clients. We have over 9 right now that are actually getting complete new homes rebuilt through the Lee Cares program. So there's multiple ways that we partner across the board, you know, with organizations. The American Red Cross, we continue to participate in their CAP program, which focuses on disaster. And so it's through, like I said, not just the local, regional, it's through national partners, everybody that we can build a team, and that's how we recover from a disaster. So in terms of our ongoing response, since Helene and Milton, Greater Pine Island Alliance has contributed over 10,000 volunteer hours through the Alliance. Over 200 unique people or families have been back in their homes. Greater Pine Island Alliance, over the course, we've helped over 2,600 people. Just since Helene and Milton, donations in kind, that includes volunteer hours, have been over $850,000 that went back to the community. Last year, even being a 2-year-old organization, we did over $1.1 million. This year, we're well on track to donate back to the community in donations in kind, a lot more than that. So we continue to assist survivors. We continue to help those around us, and that's our goal. Like I said, return every survivor home. But we're here for all the needs, not just repair and rebuild, and we're here to work with those partners to find out what will help each individual family. And how this really is done is collaboration. So after Ian, there was a few long-term recovery groups. We were also members, associate board members for Florida VOED, which is Florida Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. And with that, that provides us a network across the state that we work with. There are now over 47 long-term recovery groups across the state of Florida, because we all know that grassroots and your local community partner is the way to help people. A lot of times the big programs can't stick around and can't stay. So it's through those grassroots partnerships that we can be prepared, that we can respond, and that we can recover. So part of this, as we said, we reach out. Aaron and I both have attended this year the Governor's Hurricane Conference. We attend the Florida Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster Conference. Aaron went to the National Volunteer Association's Active in Disaster Conference. 2 weeks ago, we were at the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association working with Florida VOAD and our county partners there. And through this, it's important to understand that Florida Volunteer Organization Active in Disaster actually embeds in the state EOC and is augmented through Volunteer Florida. So right before disaster, there is what's called an ESF 15 call, and that coordinates volunteers and distributions of supplies in a disaster. So we have been sent on those calls every day at 2 o'clock in disaster, and they go as long as needed, sometimes months, sometimes weeks, depending on the situation. And we continue to be involved in those. The exciting part is working with county. County has added a new liaison for the communities, and county will be standing up a similar daily call within their ESF 15 section so that we can all collaboratively work to get volunteers and donations in. The other thing that the long-term recovery group does with Florida VOAD, currently we're sitting on the working group and working with them on rewriting the disaster case management plan for the state of Florida. And the reason is because we all realized that the outside big helps for a certain part, but it needs that local response. And what does that actually look like for the state of Florida? And what direction Florida has been working is it looks like 47 long-term recovery groups spread across the counties and local efforts and local nonprofits helping that. United Way is also contributing to that, as the 211 that people can call post-disaster can directly refer now to the long-term recovery groups across the state. So they hit 211, you get your local long-term recovery group. So from this, we continue to help people, continue to respond. I mean, some of the things we've done, I see some folks who helped us volunteer. With American Red Cross, we were also able to stand up spring break camp for the children of Pine Island. And we did, well, there you go, I was looking, yep, there's one of the volunteers right there.
It was called Camp Noah, just very, very rapidly, Camp Noah, and it was a survivors program for children who experienced disasters. And Camp Noah obviously needs a Noah, and our very own Sue was Noah for a week for our children of Pine Island, and it was a beautiful program, again, in collaboration with so many partners, both nationally, the American Red Cross, and local. And some of our donors to that were also here. So thank you, Sue.
And that James Civic Center down there. We're connected with Florida Rural Legal Services. Those who have legal needs unmet, they can help with that. So there's a myriad of things that you can connect with us for. Don't think of it just as, think of it about the whole of recovery and what does that look like for you as an individual or as a family. It's not just about getting the stick home belt, but it's about the whole of recovery. We've also sponsored in our offices and sent them out in community emotional first aid, people just to talk to. We've got people that somebody can call because we know that's a big part. And it's not just after storm, it's a year or two after storm when you're still not in. So we've got connection to that. So just think of us as a whole of situation response to the individual and family needs, and that's where we try to go, and that's how we use the network and the great partnerships that we have. So just 2 more slides. One, obviously, how can you get involved? Got a pitch to get people to help. But the one thing to think about, there's a lot more ways to help than you might just think, okay, I can't swing a hammer. Well, we need people to answer phones. We need people after disaster to be in neighborhoods and tell us what's the condition of the neighborhood. We need people to help us find out about your friends and neighbors who maybe say somebody else needs it more than I do, and you know that they need the help as well. And so from that, there's a myriad of ways that you can help. If you have a business out there and you're into the construction side, maybe donate a job every so often. I know there's people out there who would also love if you could help with outside their home. If you don't have those, and maybe somebody one time just donated money so our volunteers could have a nice free meal, which is awesome, right? Because what a great way to thank volunteers who are sometimes coming in from out of state. So there's a lot of different ways to help. You can find more on our website on that. And so I will close with this slide here. And please, if you have not signed up for, if you go to our website, we have a newsletter that we put out that tells what we are doing. It also has links to getting involved, or if you yourself need help or know somebody to get help, we will have copies of the newsletter in the back, as well as a small handout that people can scan if they need to get help.
Yeah, Chris just wanted to point out that these are in the back as well as some of the cards. We know that this was very rapid, but yes, these will be back there as well. We didn't want to bore you any longer than we needed to. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about long-term recovery or the Greater Pine Island Alliance in general? All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Great job. Thank you so much. Okay, our next group, Elsie Stearns, will come and introduce her group and give us an idea of what they're doing and how it complements what Aaron and Aaron just spoke about as well. Thank you so much.
Whoops, that's okay. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you all for having us. So I just have a little bit of a story to tell about the Greater Pine Island Emergency Task Force and how it was formed. First of all, what I'd like to do is just introduce the task force, who's on the task force, and those that are here, and those that are that couldn't attend tonight with us. So we're going to start out with the Lee County Sheriff's Office is here. They're part of our task force. Nancy Cody is the executive director at the Beacon of Hope. She's on our task force. Cody is with the Mount Lachey Pine Island Fire Department. He's here. Joanne is a Beacon board member, and she's on our task force. And Morgan is here. Morgan is part of our task force as well. Missing tonight, we have Steve Honch, who needs no introduction on this island these days. Ryan Berger is he is on our board as well. McKess from the water company, the general manager. Chief Ben is from the fire department. Joe Hernandez from the fire department. Glenn Green, Dynamic South Communications. Morgan, his daughter, is here. She is communications. Derek Stearns as a general contractor. Trish Lassiter with LCEC. Christy Tavardik, I don't know if Christy came in. She was going to stop in, from Lee County Parks and Rec. Carlin Herring, who many of you know and has been on the Beacon board for as long as I have, and she is also on the task force. And Kyle Corey out on Usepa Island, he's part of the task force. And then Mark Mascarelli, who is, Mark is fire chief out on Usepa Island, so we have that connection as well. So our mission is to lead Greater Pine Island's management efforts to prepare for, respond to, mitigate, and initiate recovery efforts from all disasters. And it's our vision to make Greater Pine Island the most prepared and resilient area in unincorporated Lee County. So we all know the history of Ian, the lack of communication, which this is a great meeting to talk about communication. The lack of communication, the fire department was chaotic, to say the least, because it was a place that everyone was gathering. And then, of course, we had, it was just mass confusion there. So I've lived here since 1977, so I've been through some pretty major storms on this island. And so after Ian hit, I started having conversations. Once things settled down, I started having conversations with various business leaders: Steve Honch, Glenn Green, Dynamic South, LCEC, the Lee County Sheriff's Department, the fire department, because there was just a lack of communication, and we weren't communicating with our county as well as we should have been either. So we did invite Commissioner Ruane into one of our meetings. We shared our vision for him because we felt like there were a lot of missing pieces. We didn't know how much fuel 7-Eleven had, we didn't know how much fuel Circle K had, and we had no road to get any of this stuff to us. So as the water company, the fire department, and we all started having these conversations, those conversations were happening actually at Honch Industries immediately after the storm. So because there was that lack of communication, I asked to form this task force and brought this group together. And then what we did was, after that, we asked the Lee County Commission to give us the authorization to move forward, which then opened the door for more communication with the county, with the county manager and his staff. And so of last year, that was approved. It was authorized. It just was authorizing the task force to move forward. Commissioner Ruane had been 20 years ago on Sanibel. And so we were hoping as this task force started to meet and we started to figure out really what our mission was and what our goals were, we were praying that there wouldn't be a storm, and Milton came. So fortunately, that did happen. And so here's what happened as far as the task force is concerned. We had put together a text that included all 17 members of the task force. So as the storm was occurring, we have Ryan Berger, who had a seat at the Emergency Operations Center. You can't have an EOC on a barrier island, but you can have an area of operations center. We were able, through grants, through the Red Cross, we were able to acquire a Generac generator, and we were also able to set up Starlink so that our classroom at the Beacon of Hope, which I've been involved with since 2004, we were able to set up an area of operations center. So the communication was happening. We were talking to Ryan at the Emergency Operations Center, and when we saw that the waters were it was going away, and I had every spotlight on in my house watching because I was more nervous about the water than anything. Our text, as we were communicating at 2:39 in the morning, we got a text from Mark Mallard, our captain at the Sheriff's Department, that they were en route with the fire department behind them and that our roads were not compromised in Matlacha. LCEC is on our task force, so they were communicating as well. As those communications came through and the Sheriff's Department was reporting we're down, they were reporting the exact spots that they were down. Shortly after that, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when everyone's probably resting because they've been up all night for the storm, our task force was still moving forward. And we were communicating, the water company was out. They were giving specific places that power lines were down. This is all being communicated so that at 5 o'clock in the morning, when Trish Lassiter is putting her team together, LCEC is showing up out here knowing exactly where they need to go. So, it just made things happen a whole lot quicker than what they would have happened. Thank you. Which is the goal. This is something that I think is really important because the task force focus is on mitigation prior to the storms to try damage and that impact our island from severe hurricanes. The post-storm, we are focused on the initial short-term response to restore access, communications, utilities, infrastructure, law and order, life safety, and emergency responses. That's why we're working with the organizations like the Sheriff's Office, the Fire District, the Water Association, LCEC, Dynamic South Communications, Commissioner Ruane, Casey DeSantis, the Governor's Office, and then the Beacon of Hope, for those of you maybe that don't realize, it is the resiliency hub for the United Way out here. So we had tremendous support as the United Way supports all of the organizations out here. They do an amazing job. So what we've done in the process is we brought in what we call the stakeholders, which is the box stores out here. The Publix is the Winn-Dixie, the Ace Hardwares, the Dollar General is joining us. And we actually pulled them into a meeting because we wanted to know if the roads were compromised, do you have a key person that can open your store and get to the food? How much fuel is at 7-Eleven? How much fuel is at Circle K? Because it's not to say that our roads won't get compromised again. They've fixed what they fixed, but there's still areas that there's a concern. So we met with the stakeholders. We found out, does Publix have a generator? If you do, what kind of fuel does it take? Is it propane? Is it diesel? What does it take? We know that Hunch Industries has diesel fuel. There were a lot of things that we pulled together in discussion with these big box store companies to make sure we have a plan in place so that if the road is compromised, we'll have boats specifically set up and captains to go and pick up those people that they need to get to our island. We'll get transportation to them, and we'll get the grocery stores open so that we can get to the food if we need to get to the food or whatever. But that's been part of our mission as well. Let's see what else I have here. I mean, access to food and fuel, getting management access. We found out that Winn-Dixie does have a key person on the island and Publix does not. So getting Publix out here, because Publix does have generators, is going to be critical. And so there were a lot of things that were determined, after Ian. Some of the things that were determined were the Water Association, for example, they had hurricane protocol and had so much days of fuel that they made sure that their, diesel fuels were filled, not thinking for any of us that our roads were going to get compromised the way that they were. So, we're more thinking about things. If the worst case scenario happens, you're not going to see us out and about all year long. You will at the Beacon. You're not going to see us out all year long. We're working behind the scenes, and when hurricane season approaches, we pull back together and we start to do what we need to do. I would like to just read you briefly, if you don't mind. This was a quote from LCEC. So, the one other thing that I wanted to point out too that really was just pretty incredible, so that you understand when I read this quote to you from the LCEC. The Saturday after the storm, when we were at the Beacon of Hope, Chief Ben and the two top LCEC guys were in meeting with us in the little AOC area in the classroom, and they started having conversation. Ben and I were talking, and I overheard them say that they needed to get to USEPA. Well, we all know that we are the lifeline to the outer islands, and they're our brother and sister islands. They're related to us in many ways. And so I heard LCEC, Robert Rice, speaking about they needed to get to USEPA. And so I said, my son is out there right now. He's the GC out there. What do you need? And so we got Derek on the phone. They had conversation. Derek started working with them. He was able to text them photographs before they even got out there. That was at noon. At 3 o'clock, he was picking them up at the marina while they were out assessing USEPA. The owner of Cabbage Key was on USEPA. Mark Mascarelli, who is with is the USEPA fire chief, he's on our task force. One of the owners of Cabbage was there. So as they were, just assessing what had happened, my son was working with a local family, the Barnhills, who most of us know, and their barging company to get LCEC ready to get supplies out to USEPA. The next morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, they were headed out to USEPA with a barge, and by Monday morning, USEPA and Cabbage Key had power. And that was a direct result of the conversation. So Trish Lassiter has been a long time representative of LCEC, and so she sent a quote that she couldn't be here tonight. She's on vacation, and she said, when a hurricane hits, clear communication is everything. Pine Island is one of the areas LCEC they serve, and the Great Task Force was in the early stages of building out their area of command structure when a hurricane hit. That didn't slow the team down. The Greater Pine Island Emergency Task Force team established a group text, and we stayed in constant communication with the task force, working closely together to get power restored, including Eric Stern shared boots on the ground information with LCEC prior to restoration. This collaboration facilitate power restoration, but also expedited other efforts such as obtaining immediate access over crews, quick response to emergency situations, and providing real-time information to the public. In addition, the Greater Pine Island Emergency Task Force team provided research such as food and water and other valuable information to the public. We are very proud of the way the Greater Pine Island Emergency Task Force and partners came together under challenging circumstances, demonstrating flexibility, responsiveness, and an unwavering commitment to public safety. This experience reinforced the importance of open lines of communication, real-time coordination, and mutual trust in managing critical infrastructure during a major hurricane. So that was the opinion of LCEC, after we had done that. So if you think of our classroom as our area of operation, prior to the storm, and we are meeting regularly now. We're bringing back in the shareholders. We're including a couple other shareholders. So our goal is just to, without saying it better, we want to get the island. We know that Haunch Industries is going to come out with their equipment and they're going to push things out of the way. We know what needs to be done immediately after to get the island up and running. And we have worked with the Greater Pine Island Alliance because as we had volunteers show up to the Beacon of Hope, and they wanted to mop and squeegee out floors and tarp roofs, that's not what our efforts are at that time. We did that 21 years ago when Hurricane Charlie came. That was the Beacon of Hope, and this is where we've evolved to at this point. So, like I said, our goal is to get the island up and running. If the roads give out, have a plan to get the stores open, and communicate with the county as to specifically what we need. Ryan does have a seat at the Emergency Operations Center, so we will have communications again. God forbid another storm comes our way. So I hope there's several years before we have to stand and talk about any of this again. but we're here and we're not going anywhere. If you look at our website, our missions, our goals, I really look at the website because the Meet the Task Force team, I think you'd be really impressed with the bios that are out there and the people that are on the team and what they actually bring. For example, Lee County Parks and Rec, Christy is pretty much born and raised out here. She's in charge of everything on Pine Island. So if we need Lavender Landing to be to come in or boats to come in, Christy has that authority to do that. So having her on the team is critical, and the rest of it kind of speaks for itself. But can't think of any. Does anybody from the task force have anything they need to add? Cody? I can tell you that Cody probably would attest to this, that when Milton did come, things at the fire department were like night and day. They were parking their trucks across the street at the Methodist Church after Ian, and they weren't able to, that was just how chaotic it was. But after Milton, because of what we'd done, and we started using the Beacon for people to come and get information, and we could just, we could send that information out to the different organizations and communicate with others, then it was way less hectic. The fire department was able to do what they need to do, as always. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Oh. Oh, there you go. Oh.
Pine Island have emergency generators to operate to get the gas out of the tanks.
I think do you know if the 7-Eleven and the Circle K have been invited to our meetings, and we've had a little bit of a different
because I've been on Pine Island too, and I had to wait on lines, and everything ran smooth. I'm very grateful for everything that all you people do.
Thank you.
But I don't remember if, the new gas station. I think that if you go to build a new gas station, one of the things is have it put an emergency generator in so you can get the gas out of the tanks.
I believe that 7-Eleven brought generators to 7-Eleven as soon as the road brought them out, but I don't have generators. On 7-Eleven is fairly new. I agree with you. I thought it was mandated that the newer stations had to have the generators, but yes. Well, and one of the things with our volunteers is that if Publix was to have to get open with only volunteers, then we're bringing our volunteers back in to go over some things, and the volunteers. That's okay. The volunteers then could assist in our conversation with like Publix and Winn-Dixie. The volunteers could assist with maybe just even outside the door if there isn't power and they can only let so many people in. Our volunteers that sign up at the task force would be able to help accommodate that. Because again, the goal of the task force is to get up and open, and then let the Alliance and the Beacon of Hope do what they need to do. After probably about 3 or 4 days, once USEPA had power in Cabbage Key, we could all go have cabbage creepers. It was time to for us to step back and let the Beacon of Hope step in and do what they know, which is with FEMA and help people with applications and those types of things, and then let the Greater Pine Island Alliance do the tarping and do all the wonderful things that they've done.
I'm just saying, when they go to build these places,
Yeah.
like they're going to talk about building a cell phone tower today.
Yeah.
They better have an emergency generator, because it's not
Yeah.
going to work if there's no power to these things.
Well, I know a builder, so if they come to them, I'll make sure they put in generators. Okay. Any more questions? Well, thank you all. Go to our. Thank you. Oh, yes. It's beaconofhopepineisland.com. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Elsie. We really appreciate it. It's wonderful work you're doing. Okay, getting back to our agenda here, and we do really, really appreciate both of you coming out this evening and all of the members of your task force. We're very grateful for your time tonight. So moving on to our next topic is the sessions that have been requested to present at our meeting this evening. And we're going to begin with the representatives for the area of Pine Island Road and Betsy Parkway, if you'll come up. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Leal Brizuela. I am a principal planner at Ensite, and the project before you today is Betsy Parkway Mixed-Use Plan Development. That is a very zoomed-out map of the project location. The subject property is, of course, located on the south side of Pine Island Road. As you first approach the island, when you're leaving, it's the last property on your right-hand side. That's the last property that's developed, that is. As you can see, that's a much more zoomed in aerial of the property. It's roughly 23.96 acres. As you can see, it does abut Pine Island Road on the north side and Betsy Parkway on the south. Really, it's that western portion where Betsy Parkway is. The existing zoning is Ag 2 along the southern portion of the site, and then the top portion is already C1A, where there is an existing medical office. That's the zoning map. It shows more clearly where that demarcation is between the C1A and the Ag 2 on the subject property. As you can see, everything in red is commercial, everything in purple is industrial, and we have quite a bit of ag and conservation around us. Then we have residential to the north. There's TFC 2 zoning, and I'm going to get a little further into that at the next slide. This is an overall master concept plan showing potentially what could go onto the site. Of course, this is still under review, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth, but this is conceptually what we had in mind. I do want to reiterate that even though this is called a mixed-use plan development, we are not proposing any residential. There is no density associated with this request. It is specifically for commercial to be added along the frontage where abutting Pine Island, and then industrial along the back where you would not be able to see it unless you were going along Betsy Parkway. These are very long list of commercial uses, but this is essentially what can go onto the commercial buildings that we're proposing. These are proposed uses that are limited to the 40,000 square feet of commercial that we're proposing with this request. These are the uses for the industrial tract. And if anyone has any questions or has anything specifically that they want to call out on either one of the slides, we can certainly talk about that towards the end of the presentation, which I'm getting close to, I promise. All right, this is a zoomed in version of the commercial tract. As you can see there, there's the existing building along the the eastern portion. And then along the west, we have two in light gray. Those would be the proposed buildings. Along everything that you see in green would be preserved. That's the area that abuts Buttonwood Preserve, actually. So it makes sense to preserve that area. There's going to be a 50-foot wide type F buffer where that area has to be replanted if we're not meeting preservation requirements for the buffer. This is a more zoomed in version of the industrial tract. The industrial tract would be limited to these areas and 250,000 square feet of industrial. The proposed uses are both open and closed storage at this time. Again, the open storage would be limited to the areas that you see in gray with the exception of the northernmost. We're abutting the TFC2, which is the residential property. That northernmost area in the gray would have closed storage only.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. For questions, can everyone come up here because we need to be able to have everyone here. Thank you.
We're ready for questions.
Do you want to wait for questions?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll go through.
Would that be mini storage units?
In
Closed storage?
would it be mini storage units
You
in the
said
industrial?
Open
It would
and
allow
closed
for open.
storage.
It would allow for open and closed storage. Specifically, what we're showing here is not a mini warehouse. However, what we do have in the schedule of uses includes that. So if someone were to say in the future, we want to put a mini warehouse here, that would be a potential use for them.
And so is this this right behind like Winn-Dixie almost?
This is here. So Doug Taylor Circle, where it has the industrial park,
Okay.
is immediately to the south.
Behind. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have questions?
Hi there. Has an environmental study been done yet on this parcel?
Yes.
And has been provided to the county, I assume?
Yes. And we have in the red the wetland impacts. The wetlands that are currently on site are very heavily infested with exotic vegetation. We would be clearing that up. And again, where you see the green is the preserve area that we would be maintaining.
My name is Jonathan Wagner. I've heard that this is actually going to be all surface storage for boats and RVs and things like that, with the one exception of the enclosed storage along the back. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Open storage for boats is proposed to be permitted. And again, the only area where we're proposing closed potentially would be along
Right.
residential.
So it's primarily going to be a big parking lot full of RVs and boats. Is what basically this is going to be like we've seen elsewhere out on Pine Island Road.
Well, no, you definitely can't see this off Pine Island Road. It's a flag-shaped lot, and then you can barely see the existing building when you drive through Pine Island Road. So what you would be able to see from Pine Island Road is existing building, two proposed commercial buildings, and a roadway leading you towards the back, unless you're traveling on Betsy Parkway. In that case, you can definitely see it.
Sure. So where is this in the permitting process then? Because this looks like a proper sort of site plan.
No, it's in the planning stages still. So it's going through the zoning change. This is what we're presenting today. Down the road, when there is an actual designed, engineered site plan, the engineer will go before this group again and present the development order plans.
Because I also heard that the site engineering had already been done and that there was bidding being done for that already, no?
That might be something else. We're the engineers for it. I can assure you no one in my office has engineered anything.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
With all this commercial that you're talking about and everything, what are they hooking onto for sewers?
We would be connected to the, I
Yeah.
want to say LCU and GPI's water. There is sewer. Yeah, so it would be
But
connected to both potable water and to sewer.
Don't you think they need to get the sewers out here for everybody that's on Pine Island now? And instead of letting new business hook onto it, they got to take care of the ones that live here to help clean up this water out here and everything. So that's why every one of these organizations ought to be is on Lee County to get the sewers in out here. They let Lee County talk about putting a sewer system out in Alva. Alva don't want it and everything. Why don't they finish up the one that's already here first? Pardon? Well, like I said, that's what we need. I agree. With all of them and everything. Every organization needs to be here saying that, including the Captain for Clean Water.
Thank you.
Hi, is it too early to be asking, because it looks like a lot of cement? What are they doing on the green side? Is it too, we don't want to see this from Pine Island Road. What is the plans for greenery? I mean, look at our island, it speaks green.
I'm very familiar with Pine Island. As far as the green and wanting to see more of it from Pine Island Road. Okay, I mean, I don't know what to tell you other than it's going to be really hard to see that back portion that abuts Doug Taylor Circle from Pine Island Road. That abuts an industrial park. Oh, okay. Me too.
I might clean up a little bit of this for everyone. I am the owner of the property that's next to the water company that has been approved for open storage. And, and I have gone through a year and a half of environmental things that I have to have it fenced completely so it looks very nice. I have to put in $100,000 or $200,000 worth of landscaping. So it looks very, very nice. But I've been approved for that already. And so my question is, I have acreage going in there with open storage. And how many more are we going to put on here? The county's already approved mine. So I was wondering that.
Okay, so here I'm unfortunately going to have to say, if the county approved ours, if it's not needed, then it's something that will ultimately be redeveloped. And that's the reason why we have that kind of expansive schedule of uses. So for example, if down the road someone says one of these warehouse buildings is not going to be open storage, it's going to be one of the uses in the industrial tract. So let me go back to, perfect, thank you. So if it could, just so we could stay on this slide for a second, these are all of the potential uses that can go on to this property on the industrial side. It's not to say that it will forever be open storage and that the open storage will be visible and not buffered and not screened the way that it is supposed to be and required by the code.
Do you have any insight on what the owners are most interested in?
Currently, what we have on our site plan is showing open storage. That's what the proposed use is. So if they were to go back and say, we want to do something else, that's an administrative amendment, they would have to go before this board. They wouldn't have to go through the whole zoning process all over again, but they would have to go through what is a zoning amendment. And that way they can verify this is the use, this is exactly where we want it located, and these are the parameters for that use.
I would have to say this is a big ask because you're taking a non-commercial, a large portion of non-commercial property and trying to rezone. This is about a, what?
19 acres?
75, 25, you're trying to change all the Ag 2 to commercial.
To industrial.
Industrial, which is even more intense.
Which is exactly what's to the south of it and across the street is in
Understood.
commercial. Okay.
And there's plenty of vacant lots in the industrial area just south, if needed, for use.
Sorry,
So
I
I
can't
would
zoom
say
in here.
that the desired need is a want, not a need. And we have a large group of the population here. I'd almost like to take a vote of a yay, people that are interested. Okay? Because this is a huge ask, and it's not a need, and it opens up for the bigger development that the community does not prefer.
So what is the bigger development exactly? It's not
Look at the
environmentally sensitive,
Look at the
but
laundry
thank
list.
you.
Look at the laundry list of uses.
Right, those would be,
There's not a specific need for storage right now. There are available storage units. The community can voice their opinion if that's a need, but it does not appear to be a need right now.
okay.
So I think the study on actual need versus a want, this is a huge land swap crap. Like this is, yeah.
Again, I would like to just clarify for this record and for the folks in this room. This is something that we call infill development. When you are surrounded on all sides by development, that's infill. This is where you want your development to be located so that it's not impacting your utilities, it's not impacting your current residences, it's not impacting the rest of your island by being located here.
I would dispute that. And hi, my name's Tom Cody.
Okay.
That's right near our resiliency hub.
Okay.
So you say we won't see it, it won't be visible. It's certainly going to be visible, especially after disaster, which is why a lot of us were here today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And that is an extension of the preserve. You can look away if you don't want to.
I mean,
just
this
true.
is the most out of control meeting I've ever been
Well,
at.
we have a strong opinion on this island, like, you know?
I've been before you guys back when you had the Moose Lodge as the venue, but it was not like this.
And I just would like people to consider, too, the impact of bringing sewer to the island promotes way larger development.
I have
Yes,
no
understand.
ability to bring sewer to your island.
I am not
but
saying you do, and I'm
Okay.
speaking to the public, not you, okay?
Is that-
I'm
is the
just
venue for
making
that?
everybody aware that that invites this future development. While it is good for the environment to get rid of the septic, it does open the door for larger development in the future.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
My name's Jeff Mullen. I've been a resident since 2014. And this open storage, okay, potentially boats in there. I can imagine what the traffic is going to be like on a Saturday and Sunday with all the mainlanders keeping their boats over here with all the traffic, and then they clog up, you know, all of our little marinas and stuff here because they all want to keep their boats, because they replaced that boat storage off of Pine Island Road, and it's all apartments over there now. So that's gone for them. So where are they going to put it? They're going to put it right over here on Pine Island here, so all the people can come over here and clog. We got traffic jams already at Matlacha.
So don't you think that a lot of those traffic jams are related to the movement between the island and Cape Coral and the mainland, or no?
It is.
Okay, do you think that maybe having an employment or more employment within the island
No,
so people don't have to go
there's
out?
very little employment on here. It's open
That's
storage.
not employment. And
It-
the commercial we're adding in the frontage isn't, is what?
Oh, I don't.
Were you guys required to do a traffic study as part
We were also required to do a traffic study, and it
And what
showed,
did that show?
it did not show impacts at the time of zoning. So a different traffic study at time of development order when a site is engineered. And you guys, I mean, this is pretty basic. And this isn't harming the island. I wouldn't propose something that's detrimental. Okay.
Yeah.
I know y'all voted
So
no
I had
on
another
frozen yogurt.
I have another question about if you could flip back to where you were showing the water management. Or was it the water storage? I guess because you're going to have a lot of surface area that's going to be covered over with roof and asphalt eventually. So what's this water management? Tell us a little bit about this water management.
Water
that's on it.
management is typically required on every site that is undeveloped. It requires roughly 20 to 25% of the site be preserved and kept for water storage and retention. It also does a lot to purify the water before it eventually is outfallen to a different location.
So that water is going to come off of the asphalt and all of that, and then the vehicles with the oil and gasoline and the diesel there and all that's going to run off into that water management system, and that's just going to go out the poor little Matlacha Pass out there where we already have E. coli content and what else we know.
That is why an
Okay?
engineer engineers the water management to treat the water before it is run off.
How's it going to be treated? You got a
But
water
thank you.
treatment? All right.
Okay, I just have one quick question, and then we're going to do the vote.
Sure.
If this goes through and it's approved, the the commercial space for offices, I think, was part of the possible proposal.
Yes.
What would be the timeline that that office space would be available for someone to rent?
This hasn't been engineered yet. It hasn't gone to development order. This is
Okay.
simply for a change in the zoning. So I can't. This is for a change in zoning. It has no engineered site plan at this time. There is no way to tell time-wise when it would occur or when
Okay.
there is a plan to break ground until something is engineered.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
We do want to take a vote of people in favor of the proposal, and I think it would be easiest if the people in favor stood up. I can count. We know how many people have attended the meeting, and so we can just count that way. So if you're in favor, please stand up of the zoning change they're requesting. Are you being, okay, there's always one. Okay, so we have exactly one person standing up in favor of the zoning change. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little.
Okay, thank you. On to our next topic this evening. Yes, Alexis, right? Yes, ma'am. Okay, come on up.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for placing us on your agenda. I think this is a very well-run meeting, and you have a beautiful venue, so we are glad to have the opportunity to present our project. My name is Alexis Crespo. I'm the Vice President of Planning with RVI Planning and Landscape Architecture. I'm joined this evening by Jamie Mayer, who's right behind me, and Curtis Ochava, who is our structural engineer for the project. We are here to discuss a proposed cell phone tower on Barrancas Avenue, which I've had a lot of feedback phone calls. We've had a meeting on Barrancas Avenue with some of the surrounding property owners, so I recognize a lot of familiar faces here tonight. So we're glad to be back before you, giving you an update on the project. Similar to the previous case, we are in the zoning process with Lee County. So we are not in for any kind of construction permitting. We are simply filing the application to request the use of a cell phone tower on the subject property, subject to conditions. I'll explain that application process. We just submitted in the last few months, and we've gotten comments back from the county that we are working to address. So we are compiling additional information. A lot of the comments we heard at our first meeting were also asked by the county staff, so you guys are well aligned with some of the county's questions and concerns on the application. And so we are working the team to address those questions. We had to do additional reports and studies, which we'll talk about. So I understand you all take a vote tonight. I can predict how the vote will go. I don't think I'll get one person to stand up. So I am a realist, but we would also request the ability to continue as long as our applicant, Skyway Towers LLC, as long as they want to continue through this process. They're very aware of the concerns. They've been given full reports on how our meetings have gone, but we would ask that we be able to come back in future meetings and just give you updates, because I'm sure there's going to be questions we can't answer. And as I said, we're doing some pretty important reports I think you'll be interested in that we haven't had the results yet. So we won't take as long as we will tonight, but just noting this, we expect this to be a continued conversation. So with that, I've introduced myself. I've worked in Lee County for 20 years now. I actually was hired by Lee County to update the Greater Pine Island Plan in 2015. So this community is close to my heart. We have Curtis Ochova, who we did not have at our last meeting in the neighborhood at the Eldridge's house. There was a lot of questions on structural aspects of the tower. So he's driven from Tampa to be here with us tonight and answer those questions. And Jamie Mayer is a land use attorney who also drove from Tampa to be here tonight. So we have filed 2 different applications with Lee County. We have filed a special exception to allow for a wireless communications tower. It's a monopole tower, which is the smaller type of cell phone tower. We'll show some images here on an agriculturally zoned property located at 7645 Barrancas Avenue. So the agricultural zoning district, it only allows cell towers by special exception. That is we're not rezoning the property. It is just allowing that specific use or requesting that specific use to be constructed. So it's a different type of application. We also are seeking variances from setbacks. When you have a 150-foot tall tower, your setbacks have to be 150 feet from the property lines. And due to the shape of the property, we are asking for reduced setbacks through the variance process. Both of these applications go through a lengthy staff review process, which we basically just started. And ultimately, these cases they will go together jointly to the Lee County hearing examiner. She is not an elected official. I say she, there are 2. They're both ladies, and they've been in that position for a long time. They are not elected officials, so it's not a highly political process. It's intended to really review the application against the criteria in the Land Development Code and the Lee County Comprehensive Plan. And there's also a very broad allowance for public comment, so we will definitely keep this board noticed of when that hearing occurs. I don't expect it I would guess it will be in 2026, just because we're going to hit holidays and we have, as I noted, a lot of work to do. So once we get that hearing date scheduled, we send notices out, or the county will send notices out 500 foot around the property. We will also post signs on the property. They're not very large or prominent, and they're kind of on stakes and get blown over easily. So we'll be sure to, I've got a, Chevy Blazer? Are there lights on? Oh. Oh, good. I needed a water break. So yes, we will eventually have a public hearing, assuming the client wants to proceed with the applications after going through staff review. That will be noticed. It will be advertised. We will certainly keep the Pine Island Civic Association aware of those meetings so you can attend. She does not limit the amount of time speakers can speak on the topic. So again, a very broad allowance for you all to participate in this process moving forward. So I'm going to show you the subject property. It's outlined in blue. It's just a little over an acre in size. It is, if I can, I can't point because you won't be able to see it, but we are directly south of Barrancas Avenue and to the west of Stringfellow in the northern portion of Pine Island.
Directly across the street from the post office.
You can see on the, thank you, whoever's pointing, that's very helpful. That is where the post office property is, so up towards Bequelia. The site is vacant with some accessory structures on it. This is our site plan. So on the top of the screen is Barrancas Avenue. We have located the wireless facility to the far south of the property, as far away from Barrancas as possible, and as far close east to Stringfellow as possible, in attempts to make this as good as possible for our neighbors, in order to obviously set it back as far from the road. For those who live along Barrancas, and we know we have a neighbor who's building their home on the lot immediately to our west. So let's get it over as far east as we can and as far south as we can. We do have some vegetation we cannot impact. And it's occupying a relatively small part of the site there in the corner. It's not, again, a large structure. It's considered a monopole, so it's a slim, it doesn't have a large base like you see some of these larger facilities. Our setbacks, just to let you know, are about 130 foot from the west property line. We're 36 feet from our east property line. We're 211 feet, so we exceed the setback from Barrancas Avenue. So again, pushed it down as far as we could, and 102 feet from the southern property line. And so it will be located in that general area. The impetus for the request is Jamie and Curtis. This is a a large part of what they do is cell tower permitting across the state of Florida and even beyond that. And so these cell tower providers come into an area when there is poor service, when there is poor coverage. They are interested in getting towers in order to increase their usership and keep their customers happy. And so it's not that the landowner decided that they wanted to do this, it's simply that this was deemed a poor coverage area. We've heard a lot this evening about all the hurricane issues that have been had out here, and so the T-Mobile and Verizon want to be in this location to provide better services to their users. So that's the impetus for the application. And so you can see that the existing service area is on the right-hand side and is just not up to par with the service they like to provide. So I think that we know this is a quiet use. There's not people at the site. There's not cars coming in and out. I would imagine everyone's concern is the visual impact of what this will be when I'm driving the beautiful roadways of Pine Island and enjoying the unique rural character out here. How is this going to impact my drive? So since our last meeting, we've done additional photo simulations of what the tower looks like to scale based on the proposed height and setbacks and based on existing conditions. So we're going to show you a couple different vantage points. This first vantage point, just depicted with the star, is going to be to the west of our property, right at the intersection of Quail Trail and Barrancas Avenue. So this is the existing view. That you can see a house under construction. And then, I think I can go back and forth. You can see the tower facility based on the setbacks. That is the visual impact. So I'm just going to, you can, if you're looking towards the left-hand side, and we can make this presentation, we have made it available. So, yeah, so this is going to be posted because I know it's not perfectly visible for everyone to see. So that is that viewpoint from the west of the property on Quail Trail again. And so here's a side-by-side where you can see again, it's a monopole. I hope that helps depict that a little bit better. It's not the pyramid type structure you see when you're driving down I-75 and the larger. So let's look at the viewpoint from Stringfellow and Barrancas Avenue. So this is just right there before you turn down the road to the site. And again, we did intentionally move the tower closer to Stringfellow to help our neighbors, or I shouldn't say, I think if I depict it as helping our neighbors on Barrancas, I will get yelled at. So I'm going to say to minimize the impacts to our neighbors on Barrancas. I don't think they see this as a help, but so that is a closer look, and you can just see the antenna structures at the top of the pole and just the overall kind of linear look of it. And then here you can see it, it's similar in stature to the lighting pole that's already along that roadway. And it's because it is.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can everybody just give her time to finish,
Thanks.
and then you can get up and have your say, please?
And I'm cognizant. I don't.
Thank you.
Obviously, I'm here supporting. I'm retained to support the project. I don't want to misspeak or manipulate the idea here. And you're right. The light pole looks closer because you're closer to it. It's perspective view. The cell tower is set back further, so it's not as confronting as the light pole, but this is taller than the light pole, so you're 100% correct. So now we're looking northbound from Stringfellow, and then I'll go back one more time, and it is located there. And this is the side-by-side where it is visible from the road, certainly. Yes, this is if you're northbound on Stringfellow and you're looking to the west. This would be I'm driving to Jug Creek, is what this view. The panels will be at the top. So
Just one panel, but the design provides up to 4. So panels start 115 feet and go all the way up to 150, plus a 5 foot. Can you guys use the mic?
Yeah. Thank you. Something I want to note, and it won't necessarily enhance the views from this perspective, but we are required to buffer the tower at the bottom. So we will be required to do a fence between 8 and up to 10 feet tall. 10 is the maximum height we can do. The security, sorry? You're saying there's some hurricane damage to that. Right, I'll wrap it up here. So I just want to note the would have a security fencing, but would be heavily landscaped on the outside, so you wouldn't see that fence. There would be sable palms planted along the perimeter, 10 feet on center. There would be a double hedgerow that would have to be grown to the height of the fence, so we'd have to grow a very tall hedge to screen that area, and we would do this in native plantings. And certainly open to discussing enhancements to landscaping, whether that be at the base or along the perimeters of the property, but certainly to the extent there's ability to compromise or reach any betterment to the plan, we're here to listen to that tonight. And so here's the last quail trail, and that's a vantage point just side by side if you're on Quail Trail looking north and east towards the site. There was questions about a generator and noise and concern about that. So this will not run by generator. Only in a power outage situation would the generator be enacted, but we do have specs. We do have Curtis here to talk about that. And so we wanted to address that item. So in terms of next steps, obviously we're here to get your input tonight. We have submitted the application. We are meeting with you all tonight. We're going to go through several months of staff review. All of our submittals will be public record. We are more than happy to just freely share that with you so you don't have to hunt on the website. If we can be anything, it can be transparent. And then, again, once the hearing is scheduled, we will be sure to alert you all so you're aware of that date. She does host her meetings, or the hearing examiner hosts her meetings during the day. So it would likely be a 9 a.m. meeting in downtown Fort Myers once that date is selected. So with that, thank you for your patience listening to me, and we'll be here for questions.
Anyone want to come? Any questions, comments? If you want to come up, please. Who wants to start? Ladies first.
Fight for the mic.
What kind of illumination would this tower require at night?
Excellent question. That was asked at our community meeting. The FAA does not require us to have any lighting, so there'll be no lighting on this structure. We already have our letter from the FAA confirming no lighting is required. We would certainly, when we get there in the process, we will submit conditions to the staff of we are willing to do all these things, and one of them would be prohibiting any lighting on the structure.
Is there any health studies done on microwave towers that affect people that's close to where they live near these towers? Is there any health studies?
Health studies?
So basically, you can look up anything in the FCC, and this tower, where it's at right now, the only trouble there's ever with antennas is if you're basically up close to them. So anything from like an aspect of you being on the ground, there would be nothing. Now you can look up any FCC website, any of that, they'll have information. They've had proven studies of everything. So
how do you determine the height? How do they know how high to make these towers?
So it depends on the requirement from the carrier. You guys will probably explain how they determined it. Basically, it's whatever the need is for that carrier to be able to project how much they need for coverage. So if I have to do 3 to 5 miles, it's going to be a massive tower. But since this is a smaller island, it can be a smaller tower. That way it still portrays, at least 2 miles, and it covers. So.
And there's a couple things that just jogged my memory of really good questions we got when we met at the Eldridge's house. One of the studies and reports we're working on is an appraisal report of impact to property values based upon proximity to these towers. So that will be submitted to the county, made available to you all. We were asked, is this going to impact my property values? And so there's obviously cell phone towers are in lots of communities, we would have to find similar and provide that data. So we're working on that. We also were asked why this site. This site is proximate to the area in question that has the lower coverage. We have gone out and mailed letters to any commercially zoned property. We would still need the special exception variances. We would likely still need these types of approvals, but we were asked to look at other properties. So we have sent out 20 plus letters to any properties that are zoned outside of ag in this area. So we'll provide those results of that effort to the county of those responses. So those were a couple things I didn't mention.
Well, I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen to the properties adjacent to you. For the homeowners there, there's properties going to be devalued, so they're probably going to want some kind of variance, and what might eventually happen with those properties. The other thing I'd like to know is why, with all the open space and all the mango farms and all the palm plantations here, why didn't you approach any of these people? You don't need water, you don't need sewer, all you need is electric, and I'm sure you could find a less obnoxious location to put your tower that...
Thank you, yes. We are working on the property value impact and then also the other available sites. Yes, ma'am.
This is really high. This isn't...
Oh.
Thank you.
We were sent out letters to...
Have you gone around physically? Have you made an approach? Have you made offers of money?
We've sent letters indicating our willing... I shouldn't say Skyway Towers LLC have sent letters directly to commercially zoned properties, including the post office. So we have sent letters requesting interest to sell property, or lease rather, I should say, lease property.
So this is less a question for you guys and more to the people in this room. I would just urge you to look up yourself the adverse health effects of living that close to a cell tower. It looks like there are quite a few homes in close proximity. Just look it up for yourself. I'm not going to bore you by reading all the studies, but there are tons of reputable studies about all the adverse health effects of living that close to a cell tower, particularly for children, which concerns me.
I just had a question if there was any, if there's any mandates imploring you guys to approach the people in the surrounding homes and disclose the possible adverse health effects to them, or if there's any buffers that you guys can take to maybe lower the health risks to the surrounding properties.
We hosted a meeting on Barrancas. We're definitely open to meeting with them again and understanding if there's some enhanced buffering we can do that would make them more comfortable with the request. So I think that's a good suggestion that we'll take back to our client and have that meeting. I think our position is there's extensive research by the federal government on health impacts, and the result is, I know we don't trust the federal government. I heard that. So it's not a great answer, but they do monitor for health impacts. But I think you're right on that we could plant on someone else's property to make their life better with royal palms or different palm trees that would block their views, and so that's a very good suggestion.
You guys don't have to disclose like any possible adverse health effects to the surrounding people in that area. I mean,
simply because I think the data from the government shows that there is not an adverse health impact. I think there's...
And our only concern is that like most of the studies that have been held that show there are no adverse health effects are by people that have interest in those businesses and things like that.
I think the government does, just like the Food and Drug Administration, there is a governmental investigation. I live in Gateway, and I am very close to a cell tower. So.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I have two concerns. First of all, the people that presented initially at this meeting tonight, talking about the resiliency after the hurricane, and certainly
Yes.
if this tower were to help us after a natural disaster like we all lived through, it would be a positive thing. So on one hand, I'm thinking, well, T-Mobile, okay, needs better coverage. Secondly, there is a cell phone tower, a Verizon tower, just, what is that, a half a
Yes.
mile to the east? I personally have Verizon. I have great service. Okay, and after the hurricane, I had great service. So speaking to that, there's already a tower there. Can't T-Mobile kind of rent from them?
Thank
or?
you. That was another point that we definitely heard at that meeting, and I misspoke. It's T-Mobile and AT&T that want to be on this tower. We investigate there. It's on Tropic, is where Tropical Lane. There is a tower. We investigated that. It is an outdated structure, so it is not. We are not allowed to co-locate on that tower because it's basically substandard to current. Obviously wind loads. These are all very closely watched, so we cannot locate on that tower, and it's not up to current standards. Sorry?
It would be a drop and swap is what they call it. And basically, I mean, I don't know what the cost Sorry, guys. So basically what that's called is called a drop and swap. So basically the tower that you guys are talking about right now is what they call a streamlined tower. If you notice, it just looks like a big cylinder. And basically that means that it can't carry the weight for like a normal sector, like Alexis was showing you guys in the pictures. And basically, if they were to remove that tower, it would just be another monopole in the place. And I don't know if it would be beneficial for cost-wise of trying to tear that one down, put another one up. I think it's easier going with this way.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
My concern is, I think the cell tower can only be an asset. With your presentation, you say it could be an asset to us in a disaster. But my concern, and I'm not sure if you have the answers, maybe Greater Pine Island Civic Association might, but in these variances that you're pursuing, I guess I've been on the planet long enough to learn that it's much easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And if these variances does it crack a door open for a developer?
I mean, you mean a developer of like housing or
Well,
commercial?
if you got 150 feet, why can't I put 25 4-bed, 4-story condominium project?
Well, the Pine Island plan limits density to 1 unit per 3 acres. You guys have the lowest density almost anywhere in the county, and that was protected by the county back in 2015. So condos are pretty much impossible here, or at least on most of the island is in a land use called coastal rural. So that's protected. When you file a variance, I can't say, hey, that guy got a variance approved, I want it to. There's very, very strict legal criteria about the unique circumstances of that property. So it's really the merits of your case. That's a technical answer, but I don't see this being, I think it's a case-by-case basis, and it doesn't pave the way, certainly not for condos.
Have you received the variances?
No, we have only applied. We will have to first get found complete by staff. Staff doesn't really, they don't approve it or deny it. Staff just reviews it for its merits and said, okay, you've answered all of our questions. They will make a recommendation, and then it will go to the hearing examiner, and she won't even make a decision on the spot. She's gonna review, we're gonna make a presentation, staff will present, she'll open it to public comment. We may be there for days, and then she'll close out her case, and she'll say, thank you all. I'm going to issue my decision once I've read everything, and it can take months. Like, it's for a case with a lot of public comment, it's usually 3 months before she's going to issue a decision. So nothing is decided. We don't even know where staff stands because they've asked us so many questions about it. So
well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Morgan Marks. Some of you may have, there's a paper back there with Glenn Green and
myself on there. We own Dynamic South Incorporated right here at the center. Mark Smith right here, he can attest. He has worked on cell phone towers for 20 years now. He builds them. So we spoke with Skyway Towers. I think the biggest thing is I understand that people are worried about the health concerns and the lack of cover. The biggest concern is the lack of coverage. If you look at Lee County's development activity projects, you can pull up, there are 2 major development projects going in. One is there's the mobile home park. It is a 53-unit mobile home community with clubhouse, pool, amenity. Existing historic restaurant will remain. This hasn't been updated since Captain Conn's was taken out. But if you consider the amount of people who will be frequently visiting there, those carriers that don't already have coverage will have even less. There's also another development going directly across from the post office, not to the left where the tower would be, but to the right, that they're presenting I think there's 16 dwellings that are multi-unit. So my point is that if you think about that development that's coming and you already don't have service down there, regarding the gentleman who asked about the backup generator, when the tower, like she said, when the power goes out, you refuel it. Dynamic South, again, we're located in the industrial park. We've been in business 25 years. We go and we refill those generators. So it does bring services back online. As far as the health concerns, Mark, again, has been working on and climbing cell phone towers for the past 25 years. We've spoken, we have spoken with Skyway Towers, and they're willing to, that we talked about design, they asked us what our thoughts were. They make a monopine that isn't really realistic with the wind speeds and the hurricanes that we get. There's a monopole, which has the flag at the top. The canisters kind of fall off, break, they become a wind hazard. What they're presenting is the least obstructive and the only way you can get coverage out here. One of the things that they brought up is the other tower, the Haunches Zone. Like she said, that tower has been, when was that built? No, he's okay. So I'm playing devil's advocate here. I know that we have property in Bokeelia, and when we had AT&T and T-Mobile, the only reason we have service down there now is because we have Verizon. So unless everybody wants to switch carriers, which eventually that's not going to be realistic. So we can help on the aspect of concerns locally here if anybody has any questions. Sorry, I don't want to derail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Certainly, I appreciate your
You're welcome.
comments, as everyone can imagine.
So I have a couple questions. I live on the island. To the gentleman that's worked on them, were you working on them while they were on or off? Powered on or powered off? On and off? Okay.
Typically, where you're probably going to be more concerned is a broadcast tower, and those things sit at 800-900 feet in the air. You probably hardly see them any other 100 miles, and those are the guys who are powered up really high, which is, if it's going to harm you, that's why.
So, thank you. Yes. And then the other question is, there's going to be a generator on there. So on this generator, there's going to be how many gallons? It said like 90 hours of being able to work. What other storage of diesel is going to be on the property?
So basically, it'll just be in the generator. The generator has a tank underneath it. That's the only diesel it has.
That's the black part that's underneath the
Yes,
actual
ma'am.
physical
Yeah.
generator?
I think she had a slide of it kind of show you. But yeah, that's the only diesel. There'll be no storage on site. We're not building a mini storage, just so y'all know.
So it showed that there was also, was it 3 or 4 possible areas that's going to be, it showed as cemented areas. What are those going to be for besides the generator? There's going to be like...
That's a good question. I'm going to ask Curtis to explain some of the shapes on that site plan.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the one is a mini storage. I was just kidding. So basically, those squares that you see in the plan right there, all those are carrier lease spaces for like Verizon, for T-Mobile, for AT&T, whoever. That's their property, their little square piece of land. Usually it's like 10 by 15, 15 by 20. It's whatever they need to put their little equipment on the ground.
So what...
Yeah, so basically if you can imagine, and Mark will agree, it looks like if you can imagine 2 refrigerators sitting on a concrete cabinet. That's it. No one's even doing shelters anymore. Everything is went, the smaller they can get, the better off they are. So the stuff literally looks like Samsung fridges.
And they'll be screened by our 8-foot tall fence, 8-foot tall hedge, and palm trees around the structure. Okay. Sorry. So can I say this just to clarify too? So the only vertical piece that will be above the fence line and the shrubs that we're going to plant is that monopole cylinder, the circle in between the squares. Chris Walzak, a blast from the past.
Yes, how are you?
Good. How are you? Great.
Good. No, this isn't as bad as the last one for sure. But I do have some questions that you may be able to answer, or we pass along to the county. Sure. Has the county ever issued like a term conditional approval for such an improvement? Meaning, so just that technology improves, this to remove in the future. Should it be an improvement to the community? Technology's growing, we have satellites, we have other things. You know, I'm just saying people like to keep Pine Island and restore it, but could be a conditional approval, just throwing it out there. Okay. If, you know.
I haven't seen, in terms of the duration, I haven't seen that tied to a cell tower. I can look at that. There's certainly, I expect to have 15 potential conditions about all the different aspects we've committed to, and then some, but can look into that of
sure.
sunset date.
Because, you know, the county, who knows? This is going to go on for a while. I know how the processes go, but it's just something to put out there and
at a certain point in time in our lifetime, we won't have cell towers. It'll all be
correct. So then what does Pine Island do when we want it gone, and then the owner says, well, I don't want it anymore? That's a bond to remove it in the future.
I got that.
Just throwing ideas out there to protect in interest of the community if this is an improvement for hurricanes, for whatever.
That's a good suggestion.
The only other thing is always asking what else can be done for the community with, you know, variances. I assume these variances are not administrative, right?
No, they have to go through a public hearing.
Okay. So maybe the rest of the land be used for some type of emergency operations at that end of the island, because it goes hand in hand, you know. Just throwing stuff out. I don't know.
Yeah.
The community can say what they want. I'm just trying to help protect the long-term community, throwing ideas out there that may help or not help.
We appreciate ideas.
Yeah.
We're very willing to work with you
that
guys.
last one was taking a lot of land, so that's why, you know, I get a little anxious.
Yeah.
I can see how there's a community benefit clearly, but
How do we get
there's
there?
always
How
a
do we
way to make
balance
a
it?
deal.
Yep.
It's how do you chop the deal up?
Yep. Thank you.
It's just what protections are in there for, yes, the community, in the bond or whatever.
We will work, a decommissioning plan is a term they're very familiar with, so we're going to work on some language that we can propose and bring back to y'all.
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Rhonda Dooley. I've lived here for over 50 years. And I was sitting at the Civic Association in the 80s when the Pine Island Comp Plan was being written. And the height variance concerns me. We've been really adamant about keeping our height restrictions here because we are coastal, rural, and we want to protect and preserve our island. And I remember a few years ago, the Wink Doppler radar wanted to come out, tower. I believe it was 250 foot they wanted to put in St. James City. And we opposed that, and it's not there. It's over in Babcock.
Yes.
For them to look at.
You are successful,
Okay.
yes.
So I guess my real concern is just changing that height restriction because it opens the door for others, and just how many more providers will want to come out and out to our island. So
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have one additional question. Usually on those cell towers, there's a certain amount of it that's leased to others. So you're giving us a presentation with at least 2 carriers on there. It's like all the way around. So I'm assuming it's like 5G. Now, how much more of that tower is going to be leased out, so how many more attachments are going to be put to it?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, we can go back to that kind of picture that's up right now. You see the 4 squares? Basically, on a perfect tower, the most you'll ever see is 4. There's not that many carriers out there anymore. Everybody's kind of merged. So basically, at the most, you should ever only see 4, which would be AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and possibly Dish. Those are the only ones out there right now. Anything else would be possibly like emergency services or some of that effect.
And I forgot to ask, how many gallons is the diesel?
90. 96.
Yeah, I believe so.
And it's the industrial grade, so it's that blue, what was it, red stuff?
I might be on that spec right there.
She asked, is it industrial grade?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, I have a question when you're ready.
Oh, yes, I'm ready. Sorry.
Okay,
Trying
that's
to
all right.
Read.
You had mentioned, I believe, that letters were sent to in the area to commercial owner properties, right?
Yes.
What about the property owners of other agriculture?
I'm going to defer to Jamie on.
That would require the exact same. So basically, the zoning code ranks priorities of zoning districts for cell towers. Ag is in the middle of the ranking. Commercial, and I think your Alexis, marine, industrial, those are higher ranked. So the counties, part of the question from the neighbor, can we look elsewhere? So we're sending out these letters, but we're sending them to higher ranked zoning districts because in the county's eyes, sending them to a bunch of ag is exactly the same issue. You've got a bunch of, we have to show why we can't locate on these other properties. So sending them out to ag wouldn't make sense because it's a middle tier zoning district and we're bound by the code.
But why wouldn't it make sense if, I mean...
I think her point is there's larger ag properties that may be in a better location. And so we'll provide the list of who we noticed. We were seeking zoning districts that were more favorable.
That would better meet the code.
Yeah. But your point is you should look at larger ag parcels where you could hide it better, I think.
So
is
if
your
you
point.
look at the fire station in St. James City, there's a tower right behind it.
I don't
You
think we
hardly see
went
it.
that far south because the issue.
Well, I'm just
is
saying
the
that
north
is
part of the island.
no. I'm just saying that's an example
Okay.
of how it's not obstructing or causing, any angst.
Yeah.
So just
Okay.
an example.
Thank you.
Just 2 quick questions. One is, are there any guy wires associated with this tower? No guy wires. This is 150 feet cantilever straight up.
No guide wires.
That's good.
Basically, imagine a big electricity pole. You know what I mean? The big pole you look at, it's just a silver galvanized pole.
And second of all, I think just philosophically speaking, I think most people here would agree that probably couldn't be a worse, more visible spot to put a tower on that neck of Pine Island than where you're putting it. I mean, it's just a prime location, a beautiful spot on one of the nicest streets on the northern half of the island. I mean, no matter where you put it, there's going to be objection. But I can't think of a worse place to put one than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, our hostess.
Yeah, well, post-hostess. I'm Christy Eldridge. I live on the island. I live on Barrancas. And I can speak for myself. I can't speak for all my neighbors, but I certainly have spoken with quite a few of them. We're not opposed to better cell service or a cell phone tower on the island. Our opposition is you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And that's the reason you need so many variances. This lot is too small. It's right next door to people who are building their dream homes. Right next door. That's what their view out their pool, out their back window is going to be. And so I think one thing that hasn't really been brought up is your cell phone tower company is not going to own this property, correct? This property is owned by a commercial developer in Naples, and that person is the one that's going to be getting the revenue of this property every month for leases, correct?
Yes, our client and the applicant is Skyway Towers, who they lease, they don't purchase property.
So
someone
this
will
is really
be
going to
commercial.
financially benefit a commercial developer in Naples. No, not even anyone local from our island, and I just want to bring that point up.
Yeah, thank you.
I can provide that to you.
She kind of touched on what I was going to say. I own a property 2 lots over from there. It's vacant right now. I bought it in 2007
with the intent at the time to build my home on it. I am not doing that now, but it is a big part of my retirement. So I'm just concerned or asking the same question everybody else is. Why that piece of property? Who knows who? Somebody knows somebody that said, here's this piece of property. You know, let's see if we can put a cell tower on there because I'm going to be taking in big bucks. There is a gazillion acres of property that we could be putting that on, not this piece of property.
Thank you.
Hi, I just
Mr.
like to
Anders.
put a few things on the record about this presentation. The first is I think you need to get a letter from the existing cell tower saying whether or not this particular facility can co-locate on that pole, because I'm sure it can. The next point I'd like to make is you do have to notify every property owner within 500 feet of a special exception or a zoning change. So the adjacent landowners should have been notified. You've got a residential lot right next door. That particular lot that you want to build on is only 210 feet wide. So what happens when that 150-foot pole blows over? Who is going to indemnify the property owner that's going to build on that lot and build a single-family residence? So the county can't approve this at all on this site. So what you need to be doing, it's totally inappropriate to go on this site. You need to be looking at other sites. If you take a look down Quail Trail, there are numerous sites down there in mango groves and everything. That would be a great location for this, and it would get you closer to the west side of the island because the money is Yosepa and the other outer islands. That's what you want to reach, and that's why you want to be on the west side of the island. So that's what you need to look for instead of this particular site. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the things I can see why you want that property to build there is because you don't have to build a road into it. You got the road right there. All you have to do is pull that up. All you have to do is put that little 30-foot access road from Barrancas to the pole, and that's it. If you had another place, you'd have to put the infrastructure in there. And that lot was bought for $112,000 back in 2021. So $112,000 this guy's got here, but he's going to, what? How much is he going to make on this? With special variances, and other people are going to have to, I'm sorry, I just can't go with that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read that anybody who has property can apply for this type of situation through a particular program? Like if I had a piece of land, I'm just going to make this up, in Cape Coral, and it wasn't any value to me, but I could apply through a particular program and let cell tower corporations build on it, and then I profit from that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I had read a program that is it, and I'm thinking this gentleman who owns this lot in Naples, he doesn't live here, he doesn't have our lifestyle or our concerns, and is this something that, hey, I have a piece of property, it's useless to me, but it can generate money for me, and that's how I see it. So can you correct me?
Basically, in a way, you're correct. The biggest thing is it's the need of the carrier. Everybody might have property, but it might be something where that property is not needed by. It may be that you own a property and it's got 500 acres, but at that point you own the 500 acres and there's no one in that area that can benefit from that tower. With it being something like this, that actually is somewhere where it's benefiting T-Mobile, Verizon to get coverage for everybody. Like someone had spoken, that there are more people coming. There's going to be more visitors and this kind of thing. So we all know that, our cell phones are going to start getting more and more use. Even with the tower that's built right now, that tower is working as hard as it can right now. And basically, as you bring more people, that tower gets more strain on it. So therefore, that service goes down. With a second tower, it kind of jumps that service off and provides better coverage for everybody, so that tower doesn't have to work very hard. Because God forbid, if that tower went down, all the people that said they have Verizon great coverage right now have nothing. But with a second tower, you would have almost like a backup to it, and you wouldn't be so pressing on one tower. True. Yeah. Anybody that has a property that, yeah, anybody that has a property can do their homework. If you drive around and your phone dies, well, guess what? That's probably a carrier that's going to need that location. So yes, if you're a property owner, I would definitely recommend trying to do something like that because it is your property. You can make money off of it, and you can sit there and rather than it just sitting there, it's basically it can profit.
I think we gotta wrap it up. And I'll say this, it's getting, Steve has come out of his home to talk, but I think it's getting later. We have lots of good notes. We have some studies that are forthcoming in a submittal to Lee County. I'm happy to come back at a future meeting and follow up with you all. Of course, yeah, no, thank you.
So, can you just go back? There's an overview of the picture of the actual property itself.
Maybe that one? Is that good?
No, there's another one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the blue outline.
Yeah, that's the beginning. Yes.
The reality is everybody sitting in this room ought to be able to figure out that piece of property is too small for what they're trying to do.
Yep.
Okay, and I drove from my house, so I missed some of the stuff that was going on. So that property is too small. Two, I still don't understand, and it seems like there's a lot of lip paid to the idea that maybe some other place could be found, but that's all we want. We want cell phone coverage on our island, and good cell phone coverage. We just don't want a cell phone tower there. Simple enough.
Yep.
It can go, and if you go and you look at the two rings, the reality is it looked like if you pulled it to the east that we wouldn't be providing cell phone coverage to Pine Island Sound. So pull that up, if you don't mind, right there. So we're providing cell phone coverage to Pine Island Sound right now from the location that we're talking about. There's no reason why it couldn't go on the east side of Stringfellow Road, back out of the way. And then I'm going to ask, okay, so the Verizon tower is old and outdated, and I've got a whole story for you about that. But why couldn't it just be put right there? There's no reason why it couldn't be put there. And in fact, I've read the 108 pages of the application, and Verizon's name's in there. I don't know if you know that, but it is. So somehow they're part of this. It looks like it's maybe construction, but the reality is it would just seem like you ought to just all come together, and it ought to be Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, and put up a monopole right there where that Verizon tower is.
Yes. Yep. We definitely understand.
You want to do the vote,
concern.
Nadine?
Yep, once again, we'll make it easy and say if anybody is in favor of the cell phone tower and its location and approving these variances, please stand up. That was 4.
Things for those of you who can stay. We attended 2020 recently for some on Stringfellow, just north of the shrimp farm, and we're at that for as part of the conservation. So just keep an eye on that. It has referred. From the county board to vote on purchasing that. And then there is this Thursday at the library a hurricane seminar, if anyone can attend that and has interest. There were some from the county commissioner today, and they were on Fox 4 News as well, talking about those improvements that have been approved. I want to shout out for the Matt Lachey Monthly Art Walk, which is coming up August 8th, 5 to 8 p.m. That sounds like a really nice event. I think, Carol, this is the third one? Third one, yeah. And you've had a lot of success with that, yeah. So if anyone can support that. And then our next Adopt a Road cleanup will be in October. So next meeting for us is September 9th, right back here at 6:30. We're still putting together the speakers. And just another reminder about membership renewal or new sign up. Everything is going through via email now, and we are working toward cashless payments. So if you could just keep an eye on that and cooperate with that process, it's very helpful for everyone. So thank you all for... Oh, yes, sorry. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.